Hello there, YouTube, and welcome to Monday's edition of The Breakfast Club. I'm Got That Funk. Thanks for joining me. I'd also like to thank Kazoom Fowler and Ginger Greek for their video contributions to my round-robin discussion. A bit unfortunate that the other four hosts on The Breakfast Club weren't able to make videos this past week. I hope that we can revisit the topic at some point in the future because I think it's really, really important. And like one of my commenters said on my video last week, pretty much one of the only things we really ought to be talking about, because this issue is not going to go away. It's not going to get better by itself. On a comment to Kazoom's video yesterday, our viewer Curious mentioned that he didn't really think that there's anything that individuals can do to sort of mitigate against this problem. I think his logic is something along the lines of, the problem is too big for any one person's activity to impact it. But that's exactly how we got here in the first place. So I can't agree with that logic just on its face, but also in principle I disagree with that sort of line of thinking. It's a bit rich to expect your elected representatives to make changes to the way society works, or to make corporations make changes to the way that they operate, if you're not prepared to make those same kind of sacrifices and changes for yourself. Whether we like to admit it or not, whether we want to accept it or not even, we all contribute to the problem of climate change by our lifestyle. That's just a fact. And most of it isn't really your fault. None of us have very much of a choice in the way the world works when we're born into it. And but to surrender that and say, oh well, I didn't have anything to do with this, I can't help it, it's not up to me, blah blah blah, I'm sorry. I actually think that's an abrogation of your duty. And as I say, if you try to make the world a better place, whether global warming is happening or not, we all benefit from that. So whether it's things like recycling, or minimizing your consumption of fossil fuels, or your consumption of things which are produced by fossil fuels, that kind of thing, everybody benefits, and the fossil fuels that still exist will last for longer. I mean, it's a win-win. I just don't understand why people think this is a major sacrifice. One thing Ginger Greek said in his video on Friday, which I strongly support, is that we really have to hold politicians' feet to the fire over this issue. And I would actually say something that I don't normally say. Normally my position is that you shouldn't make any one issue a litmus test for a representative, because they have to think of a whole wide variety of different issues, and sometimes compromises have to be made over here to get what you want over there. That's just politics, and I get that. But I honestly think that this issue is so crucial and so important that it ought to be a litmus test. We ought to be writing anybody who's running for office to represent us and saying, listen, if you're not going to take aggressive action to mitigate against the effects of climate change so that my children and my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren have a decent, habitable world to live in, then I'm not going to vote for you. Because politicians, obviously, especially in America lately, the corruption is so open, they often seem to be blatantly working for the people who pay for them to get elected. But whether it's George Soros or the Koch brothers, you can pour as much money into a politician as you want, but if the people don't vote for him, you've wasted your money. The money might as well not have been spent. So ultimately, the voters do have that power. And I think en masse, we have to make our politicians recognize that this issue is important and their jobs depend on being on the right side of it. So I think Ginger Greek was spot on when he said that on Friday. I also think Gigi has some great ideas about how to, minimize your own impact negatively on the environment. They're just sensible ideas about how to live efficiently anyway. I myself am in I suppose, a privileged position. When I came to the UK in 1989, my previous life in California, I obviously had a car because everyone does, and I was just completely used to that. But when I came over here, at first I couldn't afford a car, and after a while I could afford a car, but I never got one. I've been here 28 years, and that entire time I have relied on public transport. Little blip in the middle there when I was with my second missus for a few years. She had a car, but I didn't drive it. But anyway, the point is, my carbon footprint is as low as someone in my demographic is probably able to get. So I feel pretty comfortable about that, but I also know that there's more that I could do, more that I should do, and I try to think of different ways to do that. Last but not least, we need to be making preparations for what's going to happen in terms of infrastructure, plans, we need to plan ahead of time for what the relief efforts are going to be when people do start migrating away from coastlines and people start migrating in general from famine or drought due to severe weather events. We need to have thought about this, talked about this, and planned for it and be ready for it, so that when it comes, we're not caught with our pants down and it will cause even more chaos than it has to. So that's my thoughts on the climate change discussion, at least for now. I want to thank everybody in the comment sections as well who commented over the videos this week. And I'm not sure if Sister Danger's here tomorrow or not. I haven't spoken to her for a while. Hopefully she is, and I'm not sure if she is what she'll bring up. If not, I'm absolutely sure Nathan will be here on Wednesday, because I think he's got a guilty conscience for missing the past couple of weeks. Anyway, I want to thank you all for watching this video, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Until then, have a good night.